Welcome to the Jazz Flyte Podcast. I'm your host, Darrell Scott, and together we will dive into the lives and careers of the jazz legends who have left a rhythmic imprint on the world. Be prepared to reminisce on the highs and the lows of their musical journey and the trials that sculpted their timeless musical gems. We'll preserve the legacy of these extraordinary maestros and find inspiration in the melodies of their lives. Subscribe now and never miss a beat. Now, let's get to the show.
A lovely day. It's gonna be a lovely day. A lovely day. It's gonna be a lovely day. Shabba-dooba-dee-dee-ow. When the day that lies ahead of me seems impossible to face.
Welcome to the Jazz Flyte Podcast. I am Darrell Scott. Our guest today is a man who I just sometimes don't understand how he has time to do most anything. There's a singing career, there's a musician career. He just does an awful lot of stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, I have known of this man for 30 years. We'll be very quiet about that, but 30 years. Always done great music, ladies and gentlemen. This is Walter Beasley. Walter, how are you today?
I'm very well, man. Pleased and excited and humbled to be here. Thank you for having me.
Man, I greatly appreciate this stuff, man. This is going to be fun, and all the stuff that I have found on you. So first question is, it's all good. When did you start playing the saxophone?
I started playing at 9 years old. I started playing because I call him we're brothers, but my older brother Darrell played and his father played. They both played trumpet. And, it was the thing to do back then. Everybody was into music or sports. So I just fell in love with the saxophone. And I heard Grover Washington Jr. when I was about 11. Darrell played me a piece and my Aunt Sylvia played me a piece. And I said, I want to sound like that. And I think I might have been 11 when I first heard him, or 12, and then heard Ronnie Laws very shortly after. And the rest is history. I played sports when I was younger, was not good at it at all. But I applied the discipline of it, the foundational elements of sports and music, and combined them together when I got serious about it in my teenage years. And then I saw a problem, but the challenge. I said, well, shoot, everybody plays saxophone out here. I'm starting to look around people in high school, college, and it's all kind of saxophone. I said, I need something that separates me from everybody else. And I said, I can sing a little bit. Let me work on that. So, during that time, I fallen in love with the music of Donny Hathaway, George Benson, and other. My mother played, what's it all about? Dionne Warwick.
Okay.
Dionne Warwick all the time. And I did the rest. I just worked my behind off. My father, there was a guy, one of my early heroes. His name was Ricky Williams, and my father gave me an example. I was goofing off one day, a couple of days actually, more than that. And he told me the story of Ricky Williams. Ricky Williams was one of the greatest athletes in our town, and he said, Ricky decided to be the best at what he did and disappeared for a whole summer and worked his behind off. And when he came back, he was one of the best ever in this valley. He said, and my father to me, you have the ability it's possible for you to do the same thing, but you're going to have to put in that kind of effort. And that's what I did. I started putting that kind of effort, working extremely hard, listening harder, and, memorizing things, transcribing things, listening to all the every form of music I could. Played in Latin bands, a couple of rock bands, a couple of funk bands around in the area. And by the time I got to Berklee College of Music, I would say I was probably one of the best saxophonists in the country at that time at 18.
Wow. That's very impressive. Now, you said your aunt gave you this Grover Washington Jr. record. Do you remember the title or the album or the song?
Darrell was first. He said, "Well, I want to play something." If I was 9 or 10, he could only have been 12 or 13.
Right.
So I want to play something. His father had this big ass Cadillac. Is it Cadillac or Continental? One of the two. It was just huge, man. It was just a joy to get in that sucker and just pretend like it was ours anyway. So we got and I don't know if it's an 8-track or if it was a cassette, or what it was, but he popped in "You Are the Sunshine of My Life," "You Are the Sunshine of My Life" by Grover Washington Jr. And we looked at each other, and it was just like, man, look, this is it. This is another level. And we were kids at the time, and I think, on his part, he was crazy about Clifford Brown, and so was I. But I played saxophone, so I went the Grover Washington route and listened to Clifford Brown. He went the Clifford Brown route, stayed with Clifford Brown and some other. I mean, Freddie Hubbard as well. But that's how we started, and we were a great front line actually in the Valley. People would hire us just to be, come and play the parts, horn parts, stuff like that. No matter what the genre was. So that's how I came up, and I played baseball. Well, played at baseball.
Right there with you.
Yeah, I had a great coach in Ralph Valdez, and he instilled in us the ability to do different things, fundamental elements. Being able to take care of the foundation of the game and learn the game and learn the aspects of the game. My Derek's father was our music teacher, and Derek's father came off the road with Count Basie to teach us. And I thought that was a great sacrifice for me, because he was a great musician as well. So he taught the whole Valley, blacks, browns, whites, and treated us all the same, and gave us the joy, or taught us the joy of Black music and pain of it, the real of it, and brown music as well, Latin music, and combine them both. So we were able to actually play, music from the different, South America, Central America, jazz music, New Orleans, all, he taught us all that from an early age. I played in the band called Los Elegantes, and that was a band, and I sang Spanish. They taught me how to sing in Spanish and use certain inflections at certain times, meaning certain ways, that type of thing. And I had a great foundation when I was younger. And my father took me into the fields when I was 14. I was terrible at that as well, but he always told me, look, if you can work in the fields and make a living for yourself this way, you'll never have to worry about taking care of yourself or your family. And that was my childhood. That was my early adulthood. So by the time I came to Berklee College Music, I was a hell of a worker. And that's pretty much, in my opinion, all you really need to be successful.
So when you talk about worker and increasing your discipline, what exactly is that? What, if we had to relate it to our listening audience, because I'm sure there are people out there who aspire to be musicians, what is that discipline you are talking about?
In the intro, you talked about, some of the things that I do. Those things require a lot of research, require a lot of work, and continue to require a lot of research and work. I sacrificed, pretty much a family, kids, so on and so forth. I wouldn't advise that, but I would also advise you to pick a woman, if you're a man, who understands, or who has a great imagination, who's able to understand the fact that she cannot compete with music. Music is going to take up, if you want to be the best you can be, it's going to take up the majority of your time. When you think you're good, you're going to want to be better. When you think you're better, you're going to want to be better. When you think you're going to wake up each day and realize how stupid you are. So you'll be researching more. So it's all encompassing, I tell people. And music is the only thing that I know that, when you give it what you give it, she gives you more back. So, that's pretty much, I can, state it simply, that's what happened to me. I went all in on music very early. And I would tell women that I was dating, or, young ladies, I said, look, I'm going to tell you something. It's not, you're beautiful and everything, and I love you, but music will always come first in my life. Right. And a couple of them just walked out that day. The first day, I said, well, okay. And I didn't really shed any tears, and that's what I would tell, especially young men, coming up as well. If they walk out on you because you have a dream and you're going to work that dream and work at that dream, and they weren't for you in the first place. So you have to make sure that the music thing is something that, and especially now, it's harder to do because music is not really elevated in society anymore. You don't have to buy it anymore. It comes free. The work at, so people think that because it comes free, I don't have to put much work into it, because all I got to do is get some likes and I can make some money. That's really not the way it works long term.
Wow.
One of the why I am who I am now, or I should say that humbly, is because I have a catalog, and I worked very hard in developing that catalog, and I own my records. I've owned my records since 1993 or 4. So every record that you hear from me after the mid-90s, I own. And that was important for me, because I saw what the record companies were doing to musicians, and it was horrible. But if you sign the contract, you sign the contract. They were allowed to do horrible things to you.
Right.
all I wanted to do was have the opportunity to know what I own and own what I know. And that's, even with the books at Performance Insight, that's everything that I've learned, since I've been in the music game. The cookbook is just some stuff that I did. I like the cookbook because it's slow. I love slow cookers. So I love to just dump and go, because I'm busy all the time. And so it has a lot of recipes in there. Just my favorite recipes. Most I've tried actually, and a couple that I think are cool from other people. So, it's every day's different, man. And I think I'm just so blessed to be able to be in this position now. Just coming out of a funk, I tell people all the time, and thank you for letting me ramble, because you let me ramble, bro.
Not a problem, sir.
I'm here in Virginia. I'm not going to say where, but for the last month and a half, 2 months, I've really been going through just a change, because
Right.
I've come to realize I lost my mother and father about 5 to 7 years ago, and I had moved out west to take care of them. And, since they've been gone, I've been doing okay, but mentally and emotionally, man, I got stuck, and I wasn't able to realize that till I came over here. And what changed my outlook was I started talking to a lot of people who are not from here, and listening to their stories of how they got here, if you know what I mean.
Yep.
And I'm listening to these horrible, horrible stories about people who just needed a chance to better their lives.
Right. Yeah.
And my whole perspective started to shift. And I started to think about, bro, what the hell are you doing? Every day you get up, you better smile and thank the Lord. First of all, thank him for being here. And then, everything else is downhill. So you lost your parents. Well, everybody loses their parents. That's just life. You have to pick up and move on. And though I'm still being productive in my mind, I hadn't done that. So in the last month and a half, I've just been I've simplified everything, man. Just, okay, cool. This is where we are. Be grateful for where you are right now. This breath and whatever comes next, you're able to handle it, because, you've seen a lot. You haven't seen what they've seen.
Right.
But you've seen a lot, and you're able to pretty much be grateful for what you have and what's in store for you, be it good or bad.
Man, I greatly appreciate that. And since I started doing all these interviews, something else always comes up, and it's totally up to you. But this mental health thing, is can be devastating, and you have to learn how to recover and how to deal with it. And I think there's several musicians that I've talked to that all of a sudden the conversation takes this left, and they just need people to talk to, and at any given time, talk. I go through the same thing, and this show helps me a lot with my mental health. Back to the question. When did you know that your discipline had paid off? And I don't mean that you stopped, but all of a sudden it was like, okay, I've done this, I forged this path, and now it's working. What was that?
What is this show rated?
We don't get no ratings. You mean,
is it T?
No, you can't. You can't. You need to watch what you say. Let me say that.
Well, the first time I played in a concert, and after the concert, something wonderful happened. And I remember thinking to myself, this is going to be okay. That's when I knew that, all that work was paying off. And there was something about what I just did that moved somebody so much that, she was really, really moved. And I was like, you know what? I'm all right. I'm going to be okay.
Yeah.
And that's what I tell young folks, especially young brothers, because there's so many ways to get hung up out here. And people are inventing more and more ways to hang us up. You don't need to worry about, will I be popular? Will somebody respect me for what I do? You do the best that you can. They will come. Whether you're 18, 28, 58, 68, I'm not 68 yet, but you don't have to worry about, the opposite sex being, impressed by you, so on and so forth. That'll work itself out. If I could advise one thing, that would be, stick to your plan, work your plan, work at your plan every minute, every day, whatever situation is. Stay straight, stay on the straight and narrow, deprive yourself of the goodies until you know that you are who you're supposed to be.
Right.
And then start scouting around or whatever. If you got somebody who's going to ride with you all through that, been riding with you all through that, that's the one you keep.
Okay.
If not, then you be very, very, very slow in determining who you're going to put on because you did that work. She didn't.
Mm-hmm.
You made that sacrifice. She didn't. She sees in you maybe something that you really don't see that she sees. But the fact of the matter is you have to be very, very comfortable with you're very, very mature with your discernment. Because one wrong move, once you reach a certain stage in life, could tear you down, could break you down. My grandfather used to say, be careful, son. A woman is either going to make you better or make you worse. There's no in between.
Cool. All right.
And he's right about that. So that's when to answer your question, that's when I knew that there was something about this music that touched people in a way that would make them do all kinds of crazy things. And I was like, you know what, I like this.
All right. All right. So one of the things you did, one of the songs you did, which is the song itself is a favorite of mine. And I always worried when other people covered it.
Mm-hmm.
The song is Mr. Magic, and you did this go-go thing with it, which I just went, what is this all about? I mean, I'm hip to the go-go scene and everything, and sometimes I don't see fit. So I wasn't sure. So we're going to play a small segment of Mr. Magic with the go-go feel here on the Jazz Flyte Podcast. That is Mr. Magic by Walter Beasley on the Jazz Flyte Podcast. And if you notice, there's a different feel to it. Now, I understand that Grover is an integral part of your musical career. Why did you choose to add the go-go part to this?
A lot of people don't know that DC is a city that really put me on. You know, I'm from El Centro, California, and I learned so much that prepared me to be an adult those years. And when I became an adult in Boston, Massachusetts, but musically, I got put on down here in the DMV because there was a song that I did that was just vocal that they like called Don't Say Goodbye, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I remember telling the record company, well, okay, let me grab my horn, let's go. And they said, no, leave your horn at home, Billy. Damn, don't say goodbye. Just come down there and sing a couple of times and going back there. I was like, really? So they embraced that part of me. And that song, Don't Say Goodbye, was really, really, really heartfelt. And when they did that, I was like, well, there are a lot of people in DC who understand and who appreciate me.
Right.
And Marvin's from here, everybody's from Washington, DC. So for them to accept me and to bring me on board, I was like, I was so grateful. So when the opportunity came to record Mr. Magic, I love Mr. Magic, but I learned from my little brother, Dave Dyson, who lives down here. He's like, you may, and I thought about, I said, what about doing Mr. Magic? Because his story, what he told me is that, oh man, Chuck Brown heard Mr. Magic and developed a whole subgenre called go-go from that song. But nobody of smooth jazz, whatever, had ever recorded that song go-go style. The problem or the challenge with playing the go-go style is that you got to slow it down. Get done. And when you start doing that, man, and you slow it down, musicians always want to play more.
Right.
Thinking that playing more makes it better.
Mm-hmm.
Not with go-go. Playing less is the only way to really enhance that groove or to really make a move that makes people say yes. And I learned that over the course of a couple of years. So once I found that out, I was like, okay, let's do Mr. Magic. I'm going to do Mr. Magic, but I'm going to play less. I'm going to make it mean more and dare anybody to come in and do this way and do better. And that it was almost like a bet to myself that, okay, Walter, or dare to myself, can you make this rock in a different way, go-go style, and pay homage to not only Grover Washington Jr., but to the people of Washington, D.C.,
right.
And so on and so forth. And it's my appreciation. It's me saying thank you to a region that put me on, pretty much. And it's a special type of music. I mean, it's really just down here,
Right,
a lot of people still don't know about it. A lot of people still don't know about West or whatever. I can play Mr. Magic go-go style in Los Angeles and they'd be like, what is this?
and they're probably stuck in the original version. So when you do that, it's one of those things where it's almost like, can you play it again? Because I didn't get it the first time.
Well, as it starts coming around and people as it comes coming and that beat starts to sink into
Right.
their bodies, they're like, "Oh, this is different." I can see them start to get them like, "Yeah, I don't
Right.
know, I don't know, something's happening to me," and that's when I got them. Because it's just a very special form of music, I think, and this is one that I've loved forever. No Trouble, um, all the Little Benny. I mean, in fact, we used to argue with my little brother. We came to Berklee. I was trying to write a go-go tune. He said, "Walter, that's not go-go." I said, "Yes, it is. It's getting popular." No, Walter, that's not go-go. People in DC are very, very particular people who try and do DC, try to do go-go. I still don't have a pass from go-go musicians in Washington, DC. I'm okay, but John Roberts has a pass. I tell people it's a very short list. John Roberts, the cat from the drummer, man. Well, I can't really think, but only 3 or 4 people really the go-go musicians be like, yeah, he gets a pass. I don't have it like that yet. I don't know why, but I don't.
You'll get it. There's so many things that you've done. I don't understand how you have the time if you're busy. I'm gonna divert a little bit. So what do you do to relax, to decompress? Because I'm surprised you can give me 40 minutes with everything you got going on.
And I apologize. I apologize I just want to make sure that we had time to sit down and do this.
Yeah.
I like Stoicism. I read and I listen to a lot of Stoic philosophers like, Marcus Aurelius and, people like that probably wouldn't recognize, maybe, listen to some of Buddha and stuff like that, meditate for at least 15, 20 minutes every day, just to try to get centered. When I'm really feeling overwhelmed, I'll take a whole day and do nothing but meditate. Like the whole day, just lay in the bed and just try to leave my body, leave my mind, just, or not leave it, just calm it down.
Right.
So, I mean, I have, I tell people I have a bad leg, I have a bad knee, and I have a bad ankle. And to a certain extent, it's pretty painful all the time. I need to have my knee replaced and a surgery on my ankle. So I have to make sure that, during the course of the day, 3 or 4 times a day, I ice it. And I try to, meditate the pain away. And that works a lot too. So there are physical things that I have to go, and mental, like you were talking about before, mental and emotional things that I have to work on during the course of the day. So I don't get overwhelmed and I don't get overloaded. I try to make a cut. It's funny because, not even funny, but one of my brothers, we'll call ourselves brothers. He hits me every day from Central California. Says, "Good morning, brother. How you doing?" And he hits the whole family, external family. And it's a constant reminder for me, to stay grounded. And I hit him back with, "Good morning. How you doing, man?" We talk for a couple seconds, but that keeps me grounded. And so when I start feeling a little certain kind of way, when I get that text in the morning, I'm like, okay, let me reset.
Yeah.
And when you I want to make sure that when I leave the game, that it's better than when it found me. That's what my goal is. And until if I get a wife, or if I find somebody I want to be with, then that may change. But right now, it's all about the music. It's all about my expression. It's all about learning to be better in this industry.
Okay, you mentioned you went to Berklee. This is kind of a twofold question.
Right.
So when you were there, the techniques that were used to develop you, and then you taught at Berklee, would that be the same techniques you used then, or since everything has changed?
Right. No. In fact, one of the reasons why I left was because the music industry was changing so fast. And we mentioned a couple of people who were, one of the problems was I felt was the provost at the time, who didn't know anything about music, and the president who didn't know anything about music. And when you have a horse, you got to ride the horse. You got to let the horse know. And I had sold the most records in the industry as a teacher. I was still selling records, and I could sing as well as 80 to 90% of the vocal faculty. I could play as well as 80, 90% of the saxophone faculty. I could teach ensemble playing as well as 89% of ensemble faculty. But when I asked them to do certain things to help these kids, it was like, and just, it was the ego thing, and like, we know better, and, Walter's being Walter and all that kind of stuff. So I said, you know what? Let me just go, because when I came to Berklee, like I said before in the beginning, my teachers, my coaches had prepared me to be beyond Berklee when I got to Berklee. You understand? In fact, my teacher once said something. He said, "Walter, you were prepared to do well, worldwide by the time you left here at 18 years old." And he was right. I didn't think about it, but yeah, I mean, I learned some things that, you know what I learned at Berklee College music more than anything else, what to call certain things. I could hear them and I could play them I could play them,
Right.
but I didn't let the world call certain things like do, re, mi, fa. I mean, that's what you call it. That's what you want to call it. Okay, cool. We call it something different back where I'm from. But and that's really what I learned. So, but as the industry kept changing, it was difficult to get the curriculum to change. And I felt like this, because it's just, I'm like, I'm going out to concerts where I'm playing 400, 500,000, sometimes 10,000 people at a time. They're coming to me asking me, well, since you're a professor at Berklee, what can I expect? And I'm like, antiquated curriculum,
Okay.
I couldn't do that anymore. So that's why I left. I mean, I hear there are different things happening there, but the fact of the matter is right now, a person can get a great education on YouTube, for free, learning things and studying individually with people who really can take you through certain things, get a band together, do like we used to do in the garage or something like that, plug it in, plug the fires in, and just everybody learn, whatever they need to learn. I tell people, I told people, even when I was there at Berklee, I was teaching, I said, look, with all due respect, this is not the learning, this is not the best place to learn about the music. And then I would play the record. I said, that's the best place to learn about the music. So what we're going to do in this environment, in this classroom, is that we're going to listen to this record 20 times. You're going to learn your part. He's going to learn his part. I'm going to learn my part. And we're going to sit back and we're going to discuss each other's parts and how they fit into this whole thing that makes this thing work. And then we're going to play each other's parts. And usually by the time the ensemble was finished, people had a different perspective of what the music was. Because you always go to the best teacher, and the best teacher is the music. The music is done without us. And if it can do that, then we need to extract everything in that piece or everything in that group and learn it to make sure that we inhale it and it becomes part of it. That's all it is, man.
All right. Before we continue, we got one more song that we want to play by you. This is Deja Vu by Walter Beasley on the Jazz Flyte Podcast. Deja Vu by the guest on the Jazz Flyte Podcast, Walter Beasley. Walter, there's a lot about you that we can get into. There's many things that you've done. One thing is the music business. You've taken a different approach to it, and I don't think people understand. And I think musicians get the bad rep. I kind of understand the streaming. I don't claim to get it. I don't claim to agree with it.
Yeah.
But you took it to a place, you control everything you do now.
Right.
Was that always the goal, or was it just due to the circumstances around you?
When I got my first record there and they gave me a loan to make a record, I think I called my mother. I said, Mom, they lied. They lied. They're going to give me, after all the money that you invested in my career, after all the lessons I learned from Mr. Cannon, they lied. They're going to give me a loan to do a record, and ain't no way I could pay this money back. It's crazy. But, I mean, that was only late 20s. But that I never got over that. I never got over that. And I said, if there's ever a time when I can own my own masters, that's exactly what I want to do. And I started researching. I couldn't wait till the record company, to the record industry just fell apart. I couldn't wait because I knew that they were making $10 to every 10 cents I was making.
Wow.
And then they would spend $100,000, $200,000 on my product, and I would still have to pay them back 20 cents at a time. For every record with 20 cents went into my bill. I'm like, oh no, this is a pimp game, to be honest with you. It really was. So when I decided that not only did I want to own my own masters, because I was disappointed in the way Berklee was teaching the kids as a whole, I said, you know what, I want to own my teaching too. I want to own that as well. So as soon as this digital stuff happened and we could teach on Skype and all that kind of stuff, I immediately went there, and I told the people of the world, not the people of the world, but students who wanted to sound like me or know what I wanted or wanted to learn music so they could play kind of like I played. I started teaching them on Skype all around the world. I started teaching students and making as much money on Skype as I was making at Berklee College of Music. And that's when I said, wow. And I started developing products. Sound production for saxophone is one. How I get my sound, embouchure placement, all that, the kind of breadth that it takes to play this way. I made 40, 50 grand on that the first couple of years that was about 20 years ago or something like that. So once that started happening, I was like, there's really no need for me to backpedal and to accept what the curriculum says. Let me just keep on moving. And then when it got to a point where I needed to move and do everything, by myself and on my own, that's when I left the school. And I said, this doesn't make any sense, because then you're talking to people, well, and they're asking me questions, older people, like, how you do this, what? And I keep, I would advise them in certain things, but they were too comfortable in getting that paycheck every 2 weeks. And
right.
And that can be a danger for everybody, not just, in academia, man. You get that nice little paycheck and you fall in love with the name of this, this, I'm so-and-so, the blah, blah, and, and people look at you like, really? Okay, well, can you play? Do you have any product, since you're into music? So, at that point, I just, I love my people there, but I probably was never a great fit for Berklee, even though I stayed there for 35 years, because I was always pushing the system. And I think that's good at one point, but, you spend a lot of energy that way. And I could have done probably a lot more for myself had I stayed out of that system.
Mm-hmm. So did you have to increase your skills when it comes to computer and technology?
See, that's a perfect question, because you have to be as committed to education, kind of funny, but to be committed to learning, not so much in an academic environment, but be committed to learning about the things that are coming. I mean, I taught on Skype early, like maybe one of the first musicians to actually teach on Skype. Also, I had to learn Pro Tools.
Yeah,
Pro Tools. So check this out, man. I hope you have time.
Yeah.
But one, I had just gotten into trading stocks and all that, and IPOs. And there was and I had a girlfriend who was into tech, and I said, I really wish I could get a big up on a tech. It was the tech boom on a tech company that is getting ready to launch an IPO, and she gave me the name of I forget what the name of the company was, and Linux. I think it was Linux, and Linux was what changed the. So I popped into Linux, man. I think I might have put maybe $500 in, $1,000 in, and after the run was over, maybe I had like $30,000-$40,000 something.
Wow.
I thought the thing was broken, and I took that money and I made a studio. I put a studio in my house, and then I went to I had a knee surgery, and because I had a knee surgery, I couldn't do much, but I would drive all the way into Boston from my home in Southborough, which is about maybe 40 miles away, grab a student engineer, bring him back to Southborough and have him teach me Pro Tools, and then drive him back to the school so he could go to the classes. And that's what I needed, because I knew that I was spending too much money on recording studios. And now the industry was changing so quickly, I need to be able to record in my home and save all of that money. But I had to learn the basic process of it, to do it. And I used a student, and the students were always ahead of the faculty when it came to stuff like that.
Right.
So, so I had him teach me. And after that, it was I don't think I've been in the studio, a regular studio, but once in the last 25 years.
So with that being said, I'm of that generation that remembers all of you all going into the studio, and there's 5 or 6 of you, and you got the interaction because you can look at a guy's face and tell that he's into it.
That's right.
Do you miss that?
Yes, and let me clarify one thing too. And that's a great point. In that, I had a lesson with Wilton Felder. I had a conversation with him for 3 hours. My leg was killing me. We were in Washington, D.C., but I sat there on my leg and listened to this man talk to me for 3 hours in the hotel lobby. And he said one thing that really moved me. He said, Walter, the reason why you guys' music sounds different from ours is that because we came into the studio, all of us, with our problems, with our joys, our pains and experiences. Each one of us came to the music with those things. So when they hit the downbeat, they hit that one, that one, all of us had a different perspective of what that one was. And we brought all of those perspectives into that one when it hit. And that's why it sounded so rich. The music was so rich, and the rhythm and all of the aspects were so rich because we brought all our experiences in and we hit at the same time. That's what you guys are missing. You're playing in music in your home, by yourselves, and playing it into a computer. It's going to sound much different because it's only you.
Yeah.
And that was incredible. And he's exactly right. And that's what I do. I do miss that. But man, that's a lot of money when you do it that way.
Oh yeah, I know. I understand. Before we go any further, you are coming to Cleveland, June 27th, I believe is the date. What can people expect from a Walter Beasley show? Oh
shoot! Cleveland knows. Cleveland. If any city knows me, is Cleveland. The Cleveland is the man. Look, that's I was blessed to play Cleveland. Let me give you a story, if you can, if we have time.
Go ahead. Yeah.
There were a couple of acts that were really, really, this is the thing. When you have smooth jazz and you have pop jazz, and they have pop musicians, and pop musicians look a certain way, right? So I remember in Cleveland, one of them, we were trying to do a concert there, and one of the pop musicians said, "Nah, we don't want any other saxophone players in the festival. If you do, we're not going to show up." I was like, "Oh, that's deep. That's some pimp stuff right there." So I said, "How do I get around that?" And I said, "You know what? I need 4 or 5 cities where I can just go in there and play a small club," because that's what I was raised to do. I was raised to play small clubs, 1-to-1, let the people determine, if you're good or not, and just, So I said, "You know what? I'm gonna start it in Cleveland." So I found this club. I found this club on Google, and it was called Night Stage or
Nighttown up in Cleveland Heights.
Yep, Nighttown. So I called the guy. I said, "Man, look, I know who you are. You want to play our club?" I said, "Yeah." I said, let's do this. I'll play it 1 or 2 times. You don't have to pay me anything. Let me just play, blah, blah, let's see what happens. Give me the CDs. Sold them out. So that's okay. Now let's do this. Give me 2 or 3 nights. This is the fee. Give me 100% CDs, and let's see how it rolls. Sold them out 2 or 3 nights. I said, "Well, let's do a week." Started doing a week every 6 months in Cleveland.
Right.
So I made more money doing that and meeting people and getting, my directory together and get my fan base together. Just doing that, then I made twice as much as I would have made had I played on a set with Boney James. Well, with the pop artist, with the pop jazz. Let's put it that way. Yeah. So once I did that, I told people, I said, "Look, man, you don't have to call me for any festivals. I'm good." So I did that in Cleveland. I did it in DC. I did it in Boston. I did Akron. I did maybe 2 or 3 other places. Indianapolis.
Columbus, maybe?
Say again?
Columbus?
No.
Okay.
Indianapolis. All you need is 5 or 6, 7 spots to go there 2 or 3 days and talk to the promoter and say, "Okay, look, this is what I have to offer. As long as you make money, can we do this?" You talk to them? You talk to them about business. If you can fill up their seats, they don't care if you're Walter Beasley, Boney James, or Knucklehead Joe.
Right.
They don't care. It's business. So as long as and you start making money for them, and you want to establish a relationship. Now I can go to Cleveland anytime and sell out anybody who really wants to take that chance on me, or whatever. And that's what I'm doing on the 27th. So it's a personal relationship with me in Cleveland. It's like, nah.
Okay. All right.
Walter's coming, we're going, because it's going to be a party. It's going to be on. It's going to be great music, and it's same thing with DC, Cleveland. I think for me, that's been humbly stated, that's been my greatest joy, to be able to establish personal relationships with the city of Cleveland, and people will come, they will sell out wherever I go in Cleveland. That's a beautiful thing.
All right. Well, I tell you what, we'll talk there, because I'm going to see you. I will be in the audience watching you.
Okay.
Walter, I greatly appreciate this. What else is going on with you? What do you got coming up? What's new for you?
Well, I'm going to I have a studio session on June the 2nd. I'm doing a Spanish EP dedicated to, people who helped raise me on the north side of El Centro, California, who primarily were Hispanic and pretty much couldn't speak English, but they found in their hearts to say, "Okay, look, my baseball coach, other people who just, were really instrumental in me growing up, Black and brown and some white." So I wanted to do that record before it was all over. And that'll be coming out probably later on this year. And that that pretty much is it, man. I'm not one to like really do stuff to plan long term when it music, because I'd like to be spontaneous. This works. I'm going to do some more straight ahead as well. That'll be coming out this year too. This was the first record the record that I have out now. The latest one is called "Do You Want to Dance," and that's the first time I've actually been on the straight ahead charts and the jazz charts at the same time, which is, and I'm very, very grateful for that.
Nice. How can our folks follow your career? Do you have a website? Are you into social media? What can we do?
You can find the best way, the one that I spend the most time on, the one my assistants spend the most time on, is the Facebook, not the personal page, but the fan page, the musicians page.
Okay.
And that's pretty much up to date all the time. I do have a website where you can buy some product and buy the books that I have on ebooks, as well as what's the one, audiobooks. I'm also going to be doing a book called Quotes for Grown Folks, and that'll be a combination of not combination. What am I trying to say, man? A list. It's just a list of many Stoic quotes that have changed my life. I don't know what the word I'm looking for, but it's probably between 500 quotes, 1,000 quotes, of course, that basically I go through not on a daily basis, but on a weekly basis to make sure the best that I can be, and that I'm letting things pass. One thing about Stoicism that teaches you is that, you don't have a lot of control. You don't have any control over what happens in the world,
right?
But you have all the control over how you deal with it. And I'm a great student of Stoicism and Buddhism, things that will help everybody become better. One of my mentors was named Marshall Lewis, excuse me. And he once told me, he said, Walter, I believe in any religion that will help a man be a better man. And that really stuck with me, and that's kind of what I do. I try to, learn from all different aspects of Islam, Christianity, Stoicism, all that. So
nice. Walter, this has been an absolute pleasure. The one thing, as much as I love Zoom, there are moments that I hate it because you don't know. I would have appreciated a time when we could have spent some time together, whether it's personally or on some connection, because you just want to get to know somebody and see where I want to see where I fit in with you and vice versa. This has been tremendous, dude. I have learned more about you. I understand what you're talking about. I understand what you're going through. Your music is kind of a vehicle to make people happy. It makes you feel good, yet it makes us as listeners feel good. I totally appreciate that. I will say this, I reserve the right to be able to call you at a later date and go over and talk about some other things that maybe I have a list of 15 questions. I think I asked 8. But before I go, there's another connection to Cleveland. You're only going to claim it as Boston, but I claim it as Cleveland because that's where I knew him first. I saw a picture of you and Louis Tiant.
Oh man,
baseball player, and you go Boston Red Sox pitcher, and I go, what are you talking about? He played for the Indians first.
You're right, bro. But okay, let me just, and he played for the Angels. But I got, which is one of the reasons why I'm doing the Spanish thing. So we had moved we had moved to the Hispanic neighborhood when I was early. It was early on, maybe 7, 8, something like that. I can't remember exactly what age, but everybody spoke Spanish. Nobody really spoke English because they were first generations coming from Mexico who worked so on, so agriculture. So, I mean, I was starting to learn Spanish and I was getting okay. But one day he was playing for the Angels. And Angels was our team, and a group of us were sitting by the TV. Some spoke English, some didn't. So he comes on the interview, right? And he starts speaking Spanish, like all the way through. And we looked at each. It was the first time we had seen a black man speak Spanish. Like that was the first language. Like, he needed an interpreter to speak English. Right. So we each other, and at that point, I knew that it was going to be okay for me to, and even with my friends, it was going to be okay for me to learn Spanish, learn another language, and be accepted as a person, who did both or tried to do both. And that really changed. And check this out. I moved to Southborough, Massachusetts, which is very, very, let's just say not very exclusive, but exclusive, right? I go to dump my trash at the thing one, right?
Yep.
Somebody says, "Hey, Louis, what the hell are you talking about? Louis ain't know who is Louis. Oh, you're not Louis T?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, he lives right down the street."
Nice.
I saw him in a store and ran to my car and grabbed my baseball and had him sign it. And I sent it to my my baseball coach, Ralph. That's how excited I was about that, and how excited I was to meet him and to know he's just a beautiful human being.
Yeah, he is.
We live in the same neighborhood. Now think about that.
Oh yeah, I get it.
Our first hero in a small town in California moved to where he already lived.
Right.
And then he know it. So I'm very blessed, man. I've had a very, very blessed life. So
Walter, this has been a tremendous conversation. Like I said, at some point after things settle down or whatever, we're gonna call and talk about a whole bunch of things that we got to talk about, including some of the people that we both know. Ladies and gentlemen, you have been listening to the Jazz Flyte Podcast. I am Darrell Scott. He's been our guest, Walter Beasley. You have learned things, and I greatly appreciate that. So once again, we'll talk to you next week. Take care, and we'll see you on the Jazz Flyte Podcast. And again, thank you, Walter. Thank you for tuning in to the Jazz Flyte Podcast. I hope you enjoy these stories and soulful melodies that grew through the doors of time. If you want to stay connected with the latest updates and episodes, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell. Until next time, I'm Darrell Scott.